Good afternoon. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you so much for participating in this session titled Tracking Individual to National Latino College Student Success. My name is Jose Cabrales and I am representing Excelencia in Education here in Washington, D.C. and welcome to all of our participants. Just a little bit about what I'll be talking about today. It's very much a conversation, but I want to just give an overview of what I'll be presenting shortly. I just do a brief presentation, and from there we'll go onto a question and answer. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding my college experiences personally, but also how to apply, how did I stay motivated, but also how does that fit in with the student profile today for Latino students. So today I'll be talking about, I'll introduce a little bit about what Excelencia does on a national scale, but also be talking about student profile and just talk about a little bit about college preparation and choice, as well as financial aid and resources, and also just personal reflections on how I have managed to go through the educational pipeline as a first-generation student from California, all the way to now where I've gone through the pipeline and received my bachelor's degree, my master's, and also my PhD. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about that as well. So let's get started. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to type in questions. I'll just finish with my presentation and I'll be happy to answer any of the questions you have regarding the presentation or just anything in general in regards to college and college completion. So Excelencia in Education, our mission is to accelerate Latino college student success in higher education. What we do at Excelencia is we provide data-driven analysis of the educational status of Latino students, whether it be at an HSI or completion rates reaching our national goal of 60% of college attainment by 2020. And also promote educational policies and institutional practices that support Latino student success. We are an organization that partners with many community-based as well as national organizations in education, business and workforce, advocacy, media, and philanthropy groups. We realize that to do this work, we cannot do it alone, and we do need our partnering organizations to help leverage increasing college attainment for Latino students. And lastly, what we also do is recognize institutions in their programs that are evidence-based practices that support Latino college completion or Latino college student success at the associate, baccalaureate, and graduate levels. We just culminated our celebration, our Celebración de Excelencia last week, and it was a great success. We had many participants and we recognized three programs across the country as well as other finalists and honorable mentions. So if you'd like to see that, please visit our website at edexcelencia.org. So let's talk a little bit about Latino students. I'm just going to have some brief statistics about Latino students and the college going rate at this moment. According to the 2010 census, 37% for Latino students are high school completers at the age of 18 to 24, in comparison to the rate of other student populations, such as our African American population of 40% high school completers and 49% for our white counterparts. Latino college enrollment is projected to increase faster than any other group. As we've probably seen in media and different research, we are definitely increasing our college attendance at rapid rates, such as, the projected was between 2007 and 2018. Latino student enrollment was projected to increase 38% compared to 4% for whites and other populations, including 26% for African American students, 29% for Asian Pacific Islander students, and 32% for American Indian and Alaska Natives. And as time evolves, our profile is also evolving as Latino students. Latino students are more likely to attend college or university part-time. So, for example, in 2008, 48% of Latinos enrolled and part-time compared to any of their other counterparts. As far as Latino college completion, according to the 2010 census here, only 19% of Latinos in the U.S. have earned an associate degree or higher, compared to 39% of their white counterparts, 28% of their black counterparts, and also 59% of their Asians who had earned the same degree. So this is where I'm talking about the evolving change of Latino students and generally as the student population, college student population in general. There's definitely the notion that there's a traditional student profile in the past, and now that has been changing and evolving. So the reality of students today has changed tremendously from what it was 15, 20 years ago, whereas the traditional profile, as you can see in this image, is that you're college ready. You enroll directly full-time at a college or university right after high school. You live on campus. You complete a degree in 4 years. A lot of that has changed now to what we are calling the post-traditional student profile, which some students may enter college with needing some developmental education. Obviously, many attend college at a part-time basis in order to balance other responsibilities like work full-time. Many students live at home as opposed to living on campus their first year of college, or commute to college, right? So, or sometimes they just delay attending an institution of higher education because there's other commitments. So just like in as a traditional student profile, they may have had their parents have a college degree. The racial ethnic student profile of a traditional student may have been white, but now those are changing again and again. That college students today are more increasingly Latinos, African American, and Asian students as well. So we really want to be cognizant of the changing demographics of students in college today. And then lastly, I do want to point to the last point on this graphic, where traditionally, students are making choices based on financial aid or academic programs offered and institutional prestige. But now, many students are making choices based on the cost of attendance, the location, how far is it from home, and the accessibility, right? So that's just an infographic of what we perceived as a traditional student profile to now what we are calling a post-traditional student profile. So college preparation and choice. I think this is a great topic just because, well, what is necessary, what do we need to prepare for college? And how do we choose a college? How do we go about that? So I just want to start just to talk a little bit about, what are the types of colleges? We have community colleges, public colleges and universities that are four-year institutions, as well as private colleges and universities. And now there's more ring to for-profit and nonprofit institutions. So being cognizant of realizing what type of institutions are available to you or accessible in your community as well, depending on what factors you'd like to take into consideration before choosing a college. Many students do choose to attend a community college with the intent of transferring to a four-year institution, and those decisions vary based on accessibility, it's close to home, or it's the cost. Just like our post-traditional student profile indicated, that it's cheaper to go to or more inexpensive to go to a community college than transfer into a four-year institution. While other students may go directly into a public institution, but they may choose a state, or in some cases, like in California, there's a Cal State University and a UC institution, depending on where they'd like to choose to attend. And lastly, also the private colleges and universities, sometimes they're smaller in size, but also the cost of attendance may be a little higher than a public institution. And then lastly, also the for-profit and non-profit. For-profit institutions have also been in an increase these days, particularly with the online course offerings to their students, so it applies more flexibility. So again, that's another part of choice, flexibility of when I can attend courses if students have work or other commitments during the time of courses of a traditional brick and mortar type institution. A little bit about financial aid. Just to go back on this previous slide here on the types of institutions, and just to give a little bit more of my personal perspective of where I was as a high school student completing high school and going on to an institution. A lot of my choices, I remember applying to 7 institutions. I applied to 4 UCs, 2 Cal States, and 1 private institution. And I really based my decision on the financial cost. What is it going to cost me to attend? What is the financial aid offering? So that was a primary factor for me, is what the cost was going to be to attend the university, and how was I going to pay for it, right? So that's always important to understand, is how are you going to pay for college? So when we're looking at financial aid and thinking about college graduation and college cost, here's an infographic from our friends at University of Texas at Brownsville. It profiles 3 different students, and it talks about, well, Beatriz graduated in 4 years, and this is what the college cost was for Beatriz when she graduated in 4 years. As well as Christian, who graduated in 5 years, and these are the costs that he incurred, and this is the course load that he took to graduate in 5 years. And lastly, Maria graduated in 6 years, incurred a greater cost of tuition because she prolonged it a little bit more than Beatriz and Christian. So these are just different factors in regards to time to degree. For Beatriz, it took 4 years because she took 30 credits per semester. And for Christian, it took 5 years because he took a smaller course load. And lastly, for Maria, even took a smaller course load, and they were so it took a little bit longer to complete their courses. So that's what just a little bit of the profiles of these students, and the profile for these students are just in general. It's not necessarily because one was as we just use these as hypotheticals on cost of if you graduate in 4 years, this is how much the college cost would be in 5 years. And so it's really more to provoke thought on completing your degree. So here are some financial aid resources for financial aid. Definitely to fill out the FAFSA, which is financial aid on the government level to apply to, and this will definitely make you eligible for federal aid and to include student loans and also Pell Grants. So I think this might be this is definitely a beneficial. Financialaid.org, finaid.org is another resource. HSF.net provides just a list of scholarships that are available, but it's also a scholarship organization. So, and lastly, E4FC. This is a good, actually, a question just popped up, which is very timely because E4FC does have a list of financial aid scholarships that are do not require Social Security. So, if you'd like to see a greater list of scholarships, this is a great resource to have, and they have different resources for students who are undocumented or dreamers. And lastly is just some general policy information, some information that we provide as Excelencia, as the data-driven data that we provide, issue briefs, and this particular one is about financial aid. So just a little bit about myself. I'd like to just give some personal reflections on my educational journey per se. I am from Northern California. I started school at a high school. I'm from Watsonville, California. I'll put that there. So I'm the first in my family to attend a four-year college or university. But going through high school, because you're the first in your family to attend college or university, you don't really know how to navigate. So that was always a challenge for me going through high school. However, I did, for me, my parents really pushed going to higher education and really pushing forward and being involved on campus so that I can apply to a four-year institution or go to college in general, no matter where I applied. So part of those questions, though, is like, well, how do I get there? When would I apply? What are the necessary requirements for that? Do I have to take a certain amount of classes? Which classes, college prep courses, do I have to take? So those were all questions. Thankfully had great peers and great mentors in high school to help me with that journey. So I think we, once I applied and got accepted, I applied to about 7 schools, and I took some courses through our ROP program in high school that kind of introduced me to the community college as well. So I think after that, I actually based my decision really on financial aid. Who provided me with the most aid to attend the university. So miraculously, I applied to public and private, and from those options, I actually ended up going to private university because of the financial aid offer, and also it was a smaller institution. So I think for me, knowing myself personally and my education needs, I really just needed more attention. So luckily that the financial aid was a great benefit, and it just kind of looking at the entire package of my financial aid really benefited me for my decision. So going on to that, I think really just choosing a major was very important for me too. I think finding a major that fit. During high school, I was in MESA, which is Math, Engineering, Science Achievement, and that really opened my eyes to just different careers in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, and math. And also I looked into ROP, medicine, well, maybe I want to go into the medical field. And after participating in those, I still enjoy science greatly, but I found that it wasn't necessarily for me. So I ended up going into business, partially because I was just intrigued in marketing as a major. However, once I graduated from my institution, I worked in the corporate sector for a couple of years and wasn't quite what I really wanted. I didn't really feel fulfilled. So once going into that, I moved into my master's degree that focused more on education and on students, on student affairs. So I'll stop there, and then I'll just continue on in a little bit. But I just want to hit on 4 points here in regards to academic preparation. Really looking at being prepared for college, knowing beforehand what courses I need to take, what courses one needs to take in order to apply to an institution so that they're college ready. I think having positive letters of recommendation as part of its academic preparation is really having the networks with your teachers or with your counselors to be prepared to write a letter of recommendation so that they know you, they know your work ethic, so that they can provide a sound, positive letter of recommendation for your institution. Also, preparing for the ACT or the SAT was that was something completely new to me. I, by chance, ran into taking a PSAT, which is the preparatory SAT, to prepare for the SAT, and my peers were taking them. So I asked my peer, "What is this? What is an SAT? What is an ACT?" And that's how I ended up going through that, taking that exam in order to apply for institutions. And then also, for financial aid, really looking at your options, looking at the entire package, and the scholarships. I think for private and public, thinking about student loans, thinking about college costs, scholarships in the sense that, I do realize that we have some participants that are dreamers, finding the resources that will help pay for college and be accessible. And also, if your institution or your state offers in-state tuition for undocumented students, that's also something to take advantage of and be cognizant of. And then college choice. I think the institution that I chose to go to was very close to home, and it not too close, but relatively close, about an hour away. So it allowed me to go to school. I stayed on campus in the residence halls, but if I needed anything, I knew that home was just a drive away. So I think that was really helpful, and having the support of family close by was something that I needed as a student. And also just having a completion plan. I know for many students, really looking at, well, when do I want to reach my completion goals? I know for my institution, it was definitely 4 years and you're out. But of course, how the student profile has changed, many students have to work. Many students have other obligations at home. So it may be not as typical now to graduate in 4 years. However, making sure that you have a completion plan of which courses you're going to take each year so that you're on target to graduate. So that's the important thing I really want to drive today, is that the importance of completing, whether it's a certificate, whether it's an associate degree, a baccalaureate degree, a graduate degree. The important thing is really to complete and have a plan. And then lastly, just looking at your own campus resources. If our participants today are high school students or high school guidance counselors in general, or administrators, looking at what campus resources are available to students, whether colleges come to your campus to give presentations, getting to know the colleges one-on-one and seeing if there's a possible fit that you may think would offer what you're looking for in college is something really important to consider. So looking at the campus resources, whether you have a higher education center on your campus, or also a college counselor, a career counselor, to really walk you through applying for college. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to questions, and thank you so much for engaging. Again, this is a conversation to really engage on how we can help each other and also help you help answer your questions, basically. So thank you so much. So that is really all of my presentation, but I'll now turn it over to questions. But here is our website at excelencia.org. There's many resources on there, again, for promising practices that help Latino students complete college, so at the associate, baccalaureate, and graduate levels. So I'm going to go to questions now, and I think I've answered a few of these throughout my presentation in regards to being undocumented and the resources, financial resources that are available. There's organizations that are definitely present in regards to providing resources for higher education. So if you are a dreamer, please do not be discouraged to apply for college, because I think there's resources there. Of course, there's always challenges, but I think finding the support and finding organizations to align with that will help you through the process is, and your peer support too, and campus support to apply. So yes, I do think it is worth applying for college, regardless of your status. Okay. Okay, in regards to our website, what we provide is analysis. The question is I'm looking through your website and I cannot find some page to apply for financial aid or counseling. Our organization does not have those resources, but I did have a slide on financial aid in regards to applying to financial aid, and I pointed out some of our partners that do provide financial aid resources, like FAFSA, finaid.org has a list of scholarships, hsf.net, and also e4fc.org also is another that has a list of questions, a list of resources for financial aid. Okay. Okay, I think there's a question here in regards to how to apply for a big university or a flagship university, and the chances of getting scholarships are slim. How else can one pay for college? Because obviously, student loans, there's a stigma. Student loans are a form of financial aid. However, we also have to look at the what are student loans? There's unsubsidized loans and subsidized loans. One accrues interest while you're going to school, which is unsubsidized, and the other doesn't accrue interest until you complete. So I think there are resources. It's really about applying to different scholarships. If you don't apply, you're probably not going to have a chance of getting the scholarship, right? So really looking at the local resources. I know that when I was going through my college process, is that I had a lot of private scholarships as well that came from like a Rotary, community scholarships, like Rotary, looking at what's available in the community. I know because I'm from Watsonville, many of my friends applied for the Strawberry Scholarship because their parents work in the strawberries, so in agriculture. So I think that might be a way of approaching finding scholarships, particularly for flagships institutions that may have a different price tag than a community college. So that's just one strategy to think about. Okay, this is a personal question. Why wasn't the medical field for me? I actually I really explored the medical field. I enjoyed science, I enjoyed engineering, and I enjoyed talking to people, more of the personal engagement. So medical field could have been for me, but I think I just felt more comfortable and the medical field as well. You're helping people, you're engaging with people, and I think I just found something that was much more. I was much more passionate about education than medicine at the time. So thank you for that question. Okay. There's a question here about attending school outside of the U.S. and I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. The question is, I would like to attend college in Mexico, and because this person thinks it sincerely believe it's better. What's the best way to begin? And I think just the research. If you're looking to apply to institutions in another country, then I think it's just more so of researching how to get there. I know for me, I studied abroad, but obviously it's not the same as attending full time in a different country. So and so I think that's kind of one of the things to do is really research the institution outside of the country and how to attend and what the cost related to that, if there is any cost to attend. Good questions. Okay. Okay, another question here is how important are AP classes? I think AP classes are great courses to take, particularly because you can take the AP exam and that can transfer credits into your institution. So I think that's one way. I think AP courses are great in that way. It can provide credits to your institution, whatever institution you attend. Okay. And keep the questions coming. Okay. Another question is, why did you decide on your institution? The institution, as an undergraduate, I think my institution provided me with more financial aid, and I think that was a really a good indicator for me. But also the institution was a bit smaller in regards to student body, and I really looked at the entire package. They offered me also work study, so I could work on campus while I'm going to college. So it really kept me close to school, to campus, and I also lived on campus, which was great for me because I was able to meet friends and meet different people who took courses that I was taking, and we could form study groups. So that was um, good for me. So another question came in regards to if I am familiar with any outlines of pre-med courses. Those are really institutionally based. So if you're applying, for example, for a UC Davis, for example, they might have different requirements for pre-med as a UC Santa Cruz or a San Diego State. So I think really looking at the office or the major website in regards to what the pre-med requirements are, or the outline, course outlines. Okay, so another question is, can high SAT and ACT scores compensate for an okay GPA? So sort of like a 3.0. I think there's really a balance. I think now institutions are really taking a holistic look at your institution. I didn't have a high SAT score, and I'll be readily to admit that. But I had a good GPA at about a 3.6 GPA, 3.7 GPA. But my SAT score wasn't all that great. I know that for some students in some of my peers as undergraduates, they had the opposite. So they had an okay GPA, which was about a 3.0, but they had really high SAT scores. But we were both accepted to the same institution. So they really take a holistic look at kind of what you're involved in, your letters of recommendation, your SATs, your GPA. So I think for the most part, institutions kind of look at those different factors of your application and don't necessarily narrow on one particular score. Obviously, it'd be good to prepare for the SAT or the ACT to have a greater score, but I believe institutions often take different approaches on evaluating applications. Okay. Graduating high school. This participant is graduating high school from Puerto Rico, and if she or he is asking if there's a qualification for in-state tuition in the U.S. I think it really, if for in-state tuition, I think there is much more, not necessarily regulation, but there's, if you're in-state, you have to attend or live or have permanent residency in that state in order to be eligible for in-state tuition. So for myself, being from California, I was eligible for in-state tuition, but for me it didn't matter because I went to a private institution my first year, and they don't have that distinction between in-state and out-of-state. However, had I gone to one of the other state institutions that I had applied to, then I would have probably been at a lower tuition rate than out-of-state tuition. Thank you for that question. Okay, this student or participant asked if they're undocumented, is it worth applying for the FAFSA? I think as a non-documented student, you're not eligible to apply for the FAFSA. However, you can apply for different waivers depending on what state you're in. That's something that's going to take maybe a little bit more research in regards to in-state tuition. I would really highly encourage this student for this participant to look at the E4FC website to look at just different financial aid options that do not necessarily require a Social Security number. But other than that, I do encourage you to apply for college. So I do want to make that clear. So a question came in, what are the requirements for the PSAT? I believe those are offered by your high school. So that's just a preparation for the SAT. So I think I believe they're offered to students as sophomores, just in preparation so that they can start thinking about the SAT and the format, which is very important. I think there's a score, but again, you know, you can be encouraged or discouraged by the initial score. I was discouraged, but I kept on trying and kept on going. So I think that's something that was very helpful to me, that I didn't. I kept on taking. I think I took the SAT maybe about 2 or 3 times, and institutions will use your best scores. So okay. So yeah, great. So great questions. Okay. Okay. I think for DACA, you're still not eligible to apply for financial aid through FAFSA, but it does allow you to have a work permit. So just be careful with applying for financial aid and using your deferred action for financial aid. For federal financial aid, you still cannot apply for federal financial aid through the FAFSA, but I highly encourage you to apply for the private scholarships that are eligible for DACA students. Okay. So just to gauge here, I'm asking you a question now. How, just to gauge the participation, are most of you students, high school students, high school counselors, just so I can gauge our audience here? Ah, parent, wonderful. Okay, good. Well, I'm happy that we do have some parents on as participants, and I think it's very important for, I'm very happy that you're on with us, is, really supporting your student, just kind of, just having the information available as well and the resources. I think the important thing for my parents was for, especially for financial aid and filling out the FAFSA. I always was very eager with my parents to fill out their taxes or file their taxes early on. I know that there's a deadline for FAFSA every year. I believe it's in March. And you can check on the FAFSA website and I always pressured my parents to file their taxes early so that I can have the most accurate information. However, you can still fill out your FAFSA profile without your taxes, but just giving an estimate and always going back and filling out the correct information. So as a parent, that's when a piece of advice I always press my parents for filling out their paperwork or their taxes a lot earlier, so that way I always had the most complete information when filling out the financial aid forms. Thank you. There's a question about just the limited resources in Puerto Rico, and when applying to institutions at in the U.S. mainland. So I think there's a lot of I know there's a lot of recruitment sometimes from the institutions in the States that go to Puerto Rico, but also provide some scholarships as well. So keep an eye out for those scholarships. And feel free to email me. I can provide you with some resources, but I think I know that there's definitely a lot of institutions that go to Puerto Rico and have a constant pipeline for their institution, in particularly with engineering programs. I know that in my graduate degree, there was a lot of students from Puerto Rico that were attending Iowa State through a George Washington Carver scholarship. So those are just an example, and it's not the end all be all, but just an example of what resources there could be for students that are applying from Puerto Rico. Okay. This is a very good question. Thank you so much. What are some of the reasons that many students do not graduate from college or drop out? Is it difficulty in the university or difficult in money? So I'll answer that question first, and then go on to the remainder of the question. I think for the most part it's a variety of reasons, and maybe there's having the resources, the support on campus could be a reason. I mean, there may be some competing obligations at home. If you're a commuter student, for example, I know many students come into institutions that have families or are the sole provider for their families. So there's many different reasons why many students don't complete, but also remember I talked a little bit about the completion plan and knowing exactly what courses to take, and having that plan and sticking to that plan in order to complete college. That might be a good, I really recommend it for the students that are online, and maybe parents to encourage their students to really have a completion plan. I know for me personally, I have nephews and nieces now in college, and I really press them. I'm like, you need to have a plan. If you're in, two of my nieces and nephews are in community college, and part of the challenge is really getting them to their transfer guidance counselor, transfer counselor at the community college, so that they have a plan to transfer. And it's completely fine if they're just seeking a certificate as their terminal degree, but I think having the option to transfer and having that completion plan is very important and key for students to move forward and graduate. Even it doesn't matter whether it's a certificate or an associate or baccalaureate degree, but there's always something that's a challenge for students to complete. And especially if you're the first in your family, you don't really have the know how to navigate sometimes through higher education, and it's really important to find a peer support or support on campus to help with that navigation. So the second question is, why is it that bachelor's degrees are not enough in excelling in job environments? Why do we need a PhD or a master's to get a decent job? I think there's, more and more jobs are requiring special skills. I think they're requiring additional, skills for the position. Other reasons, some may be research oriented that they require a PhD or just different skill sets. So I think there's just more competitiveness now, whereas you almost need to go beyond a bachelor's degree to be competitive in the job market. So I know that that's particularly true, for myself. I think for me, I had a master's, but if I wanted to be a professor, I needed to get a PhD. So there's just specific skills that or credentials that I needed in order to become a professor as one of my options. Obviously, I'm not a professor now, but I think that's definitely a requirement. Okay, next question here is, so is it a problem, if one already graduated high school but did not enter college this year but chooses to go next year? Of course. I think it's really important to realize that, especially depending on what type of institution you want to attend, I think it's always a possibility and an option. For example, if you want to start off this year or next semester at a community college and just transfer into a four-year institution, again, having that plan for completion is really important, and seeing what a transfer counselor can assist you with on how to make that transfer happen. So it's always a possibility to go to college. It's just a matter of finding the resources and finding how to do it. And if you didn't go immediately to college after high school, there's still opportunities to do so. I think there's a question in regards to citizenship and parents. I think there's if your child is a citizen or a resident, they're eligible to apply for financial aid. So I think that takes a little bit more, it's a little more complex. So I think visiting the college counselor is probably the most appropriate advice I can give you, is really visiting the college counselor and financial aid. Even at the institution, if there's an institution that you're interested in applying to, is finding the resources and asking those questions, because they're more experts on financial aid and applying for financial aid than I would be. Thank you for that question. Great. I think there's a question in regards to what is the percentage, I guess, of community colleges to get accepted into a flagship institution. I think it really depends. I know that there's articulation agreements, which are agreements between a community college and a four-year institution of what courses a student needs to take between those institutions in order to transfer. So the best bet, if you visit a community college and see, well, what agreements do you have, for example, with a local institution like a 2-year and a 4-year, they can give a better a better outset of what's required to transfer to that institution. So of course, institutions that are maybe out of state might have different requirements. So it'll take just a little bit more research, but I think it's possible in order to transfer from a community college to a flagship institution or a bigger institution for your institution, as our participant has indicated. Okay. Okay. There's a question here, what is the difference between a community college and a state university? And part of its a secondary part of that question is the overall competitive market point, from a competitive market point of view. So I think there's a major difference in regards to community colleges are open access. For the most part, I think there's different degree options, and students have different options of what they want out of a community college. There's certificates and technical degrees, but also there's an opportunity to transfer into a four-year institution, being like a state university. So it's really dependent on what the student is looking for, and I think and also looking at the agreements between the community college and the institution, so that there's a seamless transfer into the institution from a from a community college to the four-year institution, this being a state university. So it's really important that if you're looking to transfer to an institution, making sure that you're taking the right courses, and they're transferable courses into the institution you're trying to attend. Okay. Another question just came in. I think there's a question, I alluded to this earlier in regards to a student being a citizen but their parents being undocumented. I think that's going to take a little bit more attention from your college counselors to help you fill out the FAFSA form in regards to that. So I think if you're accepted to the institution, you're eligible definitely for FAFSA, and just finding a way to report your income is what they're most interested in, to see what the expected family contribution is, which is the EFC. So I would really recommend seeing your high school guidance counselor, or even a community if you're going to a college counselor, to see what the best approach is to apply for financial aid that way. Okay. Great. So we have a few more minutes. So as we're getting some questions, I'm trying to answer all of our questions here. Please feel free to ask any other questions as parents or as students applying for college. Okay. So I really want to just stress too, I think going through college myself as a first-generation student, in the navigation was really key for me. Being first in my family, I didn't necessarily have those tools, or those, my parents didn't go to college either. So it was really important, even though they provided the moral support as much as possible. As far as the navigation tools, it was really important for me to reach out also to my teachers and to my peers to know what courses to take, and what I needed to do to prepare for college. So also, I really encourage you to be involved in high school, in organizations, clubs, sports, community service, because definitely something that colleges look at is really the holistic view of the person. So if you're involved with other activities, rather than just submitting a 4.0 GPA, they really take into consideration other activities, that you're a well-balanced student. So I really encourage that. Okay. I think there's a question here. If you're not necessarily involved with college, excuse me, with high school activities or sports and things like that, and you get accepted to an institution and you excel, I think those are all great. I think for myself, I think really I really developed in college. I came in with a set of skills from high school, but I think in college I really developed into who I am today. I really met some great people, and I was involved even on my college campus. I was involved in high school, but in college I was really involved with campus activities as well. So I think there's opportunity to be involved on campus in college. Even with community activities, I was involved. So don't limit yourself really to just your activities in high school, but transfer those activities into college. Even though it's a little bit of a different challenge academically, but I think being involved in college is really important. I think it just enhances a lot of, or develops a lot of skills that you may not otherwise have. So I really encourage you to be involved not only in high school but also in college. Okay, there's a question here in regards to is it best to receive your bachelor's degree online or going to a brick and mortar university, which is just an institution like a state university or college? I really think it just depends on the student. If you are a better learner online and receive your for me personally, I like seeing the professor. I like engaging in conversation on a personal level. So I think it's really it really depends on you, on your motivation, but also to also complete. So okay, one more question. Anybody? Any takers? Okay, well, I really want to thank you for participating in this session. I really hope that you succeed in college, and for the parents, I really appreciate you being here as well, taking the time to find resources for your students, but also learning a little bit more about the college going process yourselves. So I think I really appreciate all the students on here asking questions, particularly our dreamers that are on the presentation. Uh, you know, don't be discouraged, but keep on going. For all the students that are here, please complete the highest degree possible. I know that was one of my goals, was to really finish college, my 4-year, but also advance into other advanced degrees too. So, échenle ganas. I thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate all of your questions and your time for this presentation. Muchas gracias.